I currently have some coffee in my Dunder Mifflin Saber mug. Alright, anyway. We're gonna get into some news here. There's rumors about, or Sony is reportedly buying the Elden Ring developer's parent company. I'm blanking on the name of the parent company, but it's FromSoftware's parent company, and that parent company owns a couple other subsidiaries. Shit. Let's go to GameDeveloper.com. That's probably where it's going to be. Finds 2 new execs for its mobile game division. I think that's already over here too. But we'll get Game Developer's take on it as well. Oops. Alright, here we go. This is what we were going to read. PlayStation names Olivier Courtemanche as head of mobile. Justin Kubiak also appointed as head of mobile business development and partnerships. Okay, so this is that same story. Sony Interactive Entertainment has appointed Olivier Courtemanche as its new head of mobile and Justin Kubiak as head of mobile business development and partnerships. Both announced their new roles on LinkedIn. Courtemanche previously was PlayStation's co-head of mobile alongside Chris Davis, who appears to still be in that role. Courtemanche initially joined Sony in 2022 after stints at the likes of Meta, Zynga, Walt Disney, and EA. It's a good pick if he was over at Zynga before. Meanwhile, Kubiak previously was heading PlayStation's licensing and developer partnerships for mobile, having joined in 2021 from Samsung, where he was head of games partnerships. He previously worked at the likes of NCSoft, Scopely, and Disney Interactive. Scopely is the publisher of Monopoly Go, which I forgot I haven't played yet today. I gotta do that. Sony shut down its first-party mobile developer Neon Koi last month, a studio it had acquired in 2022. The developer was initially launched under the name Savage Game Studios by Rockstar, Wargaming, and Rovio alumni, but rebranded in late 2023. Game Developer did a story on that as well that we just pulled. I forgot to how to go out of... yeah, here we go. This is essentially the same story, but from it's a different author report. 2-year alums, Olivier Courtemanche and Justin Kubiak. PlayStation has uploaded a new pair of executives to lead its mobile division. As of today, Olivier Courtemanche and Justin Kubiak hold respective positions as the head of mobile and leader of mobile business development and partnerships at Sony Interactive Entertainment. Both men have been at SIE since 2022. Courtemanche, an alum at EA and Meta, started out as a senior director for PlayStation Studios' mobile division, and just last year became mobile's co-head alongside Chris Davis. Meanwhile, Kubiak joined SIE in licensing mobile partnerships and previously worked at Samsung and NCSoft. The duo marked the first major hires for PlayStation's mobile side since the departure of VP Nicola Sebastiani in 2023. At the time, PlayStation's ambitions for the phone market were quiet, save for acquiring Savage Game Studios, which saw the exits of CEO Mikhail Katkoff and general manager Sophie Vo not long after Sebastiani left. In the time since, Savage Game rebranded to Neon Koi, which was closed down alongside Concord developer Firewalk back in October. Both just really brutal closures. I'm still kind of sour over. 'Cause, 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 how the Firewalk closure went down. Anyway, prior to his end, Neon Koi was working on an action RPG for phones, which was never fully revealed. This past May, reports alleged Sony was aiming to make a mobile PlayStation Store for free-to-play titles. It's unknown how Cord Munch and Kubiak's new positions will factor into that, or its other plans or commitment for the phone space beyond that hypothetical storefront. I mean, that would be kind of taking a play from Xbox, because Xbox has the the cloud gaming app, and Game Pass is also on a mobile app. I have the cloud gaming. I have the cloud gaming app on my iPhone, and I do sometimes play my PlayStation on my phone via the what's the app? The PlayStation Remote Play, which isn't bad, honestly, to be able to play my PlayStation on the go without having to haul it around. This is the major story from earlier that I was talking about. And I'm not particularly excited about this. Report: Sony working to acquire FromSoftware parent company Kadokawa. A potential deal could see Elden Ring become a first-party PlayStation franchise. This comes from Chris Kerr, the news editor over at GameDeveloper.com. It's claimed Sony and Kadokawa have already entered discussions. Sony is reportedly in talks to acquire FromSoftware parent company Kadokawa Corporation. That's according to Reuters, which spoke with two sources familiar with the matter. Wouldn't hurt to open that in a new tab, and we can go check out the original reporting. Claimed Sony and Kadokawa have already entered discussions and that a deal could be signed in the coming weeks. Sony currently holds a 14.09% stake in Kadokawa and last upped its stake in the company back in 2022. Kadokawa said the pair have built a, quote, collaborative business relationship around creating new franchises. Chinese conglomerate Tencent also holds a 16.25% stake in Kadokawa. Kadokawa's publishing plans. Kadokawa recently outlined plans to push into PC and console publishing. In its latest fiscal report, the company said it's, quote, developing a structure, unquote, to bolster its video game business and also intends to double down on mobile projects. The Japanese company noted that FromSoftware's critically acclaimed and rather brutal RPG, Elden Ring, continues to drive high growth within its gaming business. Elden Ring has sold over 25 million copies since launching in 2022. FromSoftware expanded the title this year with the celebrated Shadow of the Erdtree expansion, which has been nominated for Game of the Year at the Game Awards 2024. That's a whole other caveat there. I'm not particularly a fan of DLC being nominated for Game of the Year, but no, that's a story for another time. We're not talking about that right now. Sony, meanwhile, has spent the last year downsizing its internal studios. The company shuttered Concord developer Firewalk and mobile studio Neon Koi in October. Prior to that, it laid off 900 employees across key PlayStation studios such as Insomniac, Naughty Dog, and Guerrilla. It also closed the Getaway and VR Worlds developer London studio. I don't want this to be a thing. Industry consolidation is not good for the industry, as we can see with what happened with Concord, as we can see with what happened with all the layoffs at Activision Blizzard, and the closure of, the closure of Firewalk, what's happening with Bungie as well. I don't even remember if Firewalk even wanted to make Concord, but the fact that Sony, I guess Concord was being developed before the Sony acquisition, but the fact that the game released, got 2 weeks, and then was pulled from stores, shut down, refunded, and then the studio closed a number of weeks later. I think 2 weeks later. having Sony backing does not help the studio. It does not give a project, no matter what the project is, a financial backing to take risks. If anything, it actually takes risk, or it increases the risk, and if things don't go well, the punishment is on the developer and not Sony for... It's just really frustrating. Because in a time of the amount of turmoil that has hit the video game industry in the last 2 or 3 years now, just the amount of layoffs and studio closures and the amount of people who are bordering on homelessness or having to leave the industry altogether. Like, I was laid off in a studio closure over a year ago at this point. I've burned through my savings. I'm now working a job that I don't even like, and that's barely paying the bills. And I'm still struggling to get another job, and I'm far from the only one. There's people with decades more experience than me, who are struggling just as much as me to get another job in the industry. And industry consolidation like this is making matters worse. And FromSoft does really well with their games. They do very well with their games. And I don't want to see what happened to Bungie happen to FromSoftware as a result of going under Sony. Now, Bungie is a whole other story. Like, there was reportedly problems before. I guess I should disclose that I do have friends that work or have worked at Bungie, so I'm a little bit more sour about the Bungie thing than someone who doesn't have friends there, but still. I don't want to see what happened with... I just don't want to see... I don't want to see the results of industry consolidation happen to FromSoftware the same way that it's happened at studios under Microsoft and studios under Sony, studios under Ubisoft, studios under, especially under Embracer. I don't want to see that happening. Because here's the thing, and this is something that Sean Layden, a former CEO of PlayStation, he was a former executive of PlayStation, or is a former executive of PlayStation, and he talked about, let me see if I can actually find the interview, but he basically, and this was actually about FromSoftware. I think what was it? I think it was an interview with GameIndustry.biz where he said that AAA publishers lack the patience to see studios grow beyond their initial releases. For example, and he brings up FromSoftware. FromSoftware's first sort of Souls-like game was Demon's Souls, and it was not a massive hit when it came out. It grew into a sort of niche, and they improved on that formula with the first Dark Souls. And then Dark Souls 2 took it even further. In today's environment, in today's market, if Demon's Souls was released in this market under a publisher like Sony or a publisher like Embracer, if Demon's Souls released to the same reception and financial results as it did when it came out in its time, FromSoftware would not get another chance to make Dark Souls. Dark Souls would not exist. Elden Ring would not exist. Sekiro would not exist. They would have been gone. Let me see if I can find that interview. I'll read it. Yeah, it's not a super long interview, but this is essentially what he was talking about, or what I was talking about. And this is from June of this year, so this was a few months ago. Tencent advisor and former PlayStation boss Sean Layden has criticized the games industry's lack of patience during this period of widespread layoffs. Layden's comments came during the opening podcast for GI Sprint, which is a new series of videos, podcasts, and articles around the subject of making video games cheaper, faster, and better. The full podcast goes live later today, and I listened to this on the podcast, but I'm glad that they broke down some of the key points of the interview. The current industry situation, which has seen tens of thousands of redundancies across the business, and even more so today, considering that this article that we're reading is from 6 months ago, 5 months ago. When was June? 5 months ago? June, July, August, September, November. Wait. October, November. Yeah. 5 months ago. Anyway. Has been caused by slow growth and rapidly rising costs. And Layden says a side effect has been impatience from games companies when it comes to new ideas and concepts. That's the real frustrating thing when you see people say, look, here's a small studio that made a great game, it has true promise, it created an entirely new gaming experience, but we don't have the patience to play this thing out into part 2 or part 3, he began. Even though they didn't really get wiped out by it, they didn't have the windfall profits they expected, and so they just kill this thing and go for more established AAA IP, sequels, copycats, and things that from a financial perspective, you can draw a through line and say, if we build this game, it likely perform like this in the market. When you bring completely new things that people have not seen before, which may be fantastic and quite often are, the publishing industry doesn't have patience now to nurture these things, and they feel that they need the quick big win, and that's a terrible place to be in an entertainment and creative industry. Layden says it is ultimate, and just to add to this, what happened with Ghostwire Tokyo and Hi-Fi Rush, Tango Gameworks. Hi-Fi Rush was a sleeper hit, but it wasn't a financial hit, so Microsoft closed the studio. Even though they are trying really hard to get into the Japanese market, Tango Gameworks is a Japanese studio. But because this thing that they put out wasn't a huge financial success, they closed them. Thankfully, Krafton bought them, but they didn't get to keep most of the IP because they wanted, the way that they did that buyout was they wanted it to be fast so that they could keep all of the talent there and not have this long drawn out purchase that included all of the other IP, like that horror game that they made, Tango Gameworks, Evil Within. So Evil Within, they didn't get that IP. So Microsoft is holding on to that IP. They're holding on to Ghostwire. Holding on to Ghostwire Tokyo, but Krafton got to purchase the studio and the Hi-Fi Rush IP. And they know that Hi-Fi Rush is not going to make them a lot of money, but they still want to nurture that talent because it can grow into a huge hit IP. The game was a hit. It just didn't do super well financially, probably because it came out as a shadow drop on Game Pass. They didn't put a lot of marketing. They didn't put any marketing into it. Just a trailer and the announcement that it's out right now. Anyway, I'm getting worked up. Layton says it is ultimately the new ideas that will be what gets the industry, particularly the AAA console industry, out of its current predicament, not established brands and franchises. The vast majority of the planet has already said Grand Theft Auto is not that interesting. Call of Duty is not that interesting. They were both huge hits in our little village of gamers, of course. If people have already said they're not interested in that experience, building more of those experiences will not get them in. It seems pretty axiomatic to me. And he's not wrong. He continues, how does this entertainment industry continue to grow and expand and reach new people? And in my mind, that's through innovation and through bringing out new kinds of games. So okay, you don't like first-person shooters and you don't like RPGs. Here's something else. Here's a rhythm action gaming piece that's all about music and bright colors and having a good time. Where's the space for those games? And how do we continue to provide outreach to get new people involved in the interactive entertainment world? He adds that patience works both ways too. Game companies need to show patience when nurturing new ideas, but also patience when reacting to what's going on in the market, citing the industry's overexcitement about the lockdown during the lockdown years. We went through this time of artificial growth during the pandemic, and I would have expected more companies to recognize that this is a very limited time party people. Make hay while the sun shines, but don't make huge investments against what you think is a never-ending 20% growth rate year on year, because that's not continuing. But people got excited in the moment, they didn't want to miss the opportunity, so you bulk up. None of us knew how long the pandemic was going to last or lockdown was going to last, so I guess you do make investments to try and jump on the potential that may be longer than it turned out to be. Which I disagree with. That was very dumb. It was a pandemic, it wasn't going to last forever. Don't bulk up like those growth numbers are going to be permanent. It was always going to go back to some form of normal. Maybe there were people who were new to gaming during the pandemic and stuck to that after the lockdowns ended, but it's not going to be a huge attach rate. But these companies bet on that, and it didn't work out. And the developers, the workers in the industry, are the ones who got hit by that. That's why all of these mass layoffs are happening. Obviously, the global economy, or the macro economy, the global economy, and inflation didn't help. But still. But that's a huge gamble. You're betting on the comet, and if it doesn't happen, then you're stuck out. Then you're stuck out of position with a huge labor load. He continues, it's human nature, right? If you're at the craps table and someone's got the hot hand, and they're running the table, you just want to jump on that train and get a piece of that before it goes. That's why patience is the thing that's important. The industry is losing patience. We need to find a way to solve this problem in 6 months in an industry where nothing gets done in 6 months. It gets done in like 3 or 4 years or 5 years. Maybe some indie titles take 2 or 3 years, but betting on something getting done in 6 months is a bad gamble in this industry. Layton says it's ultimately the smaller studios and companies who suffer the most, who may have been acquired during this period of excess with the promise of creative freedom, only to find themselves having to cut back because of growth concerns by their parent company. Which brings me back full circle to why I'm not particularly excited about this. Because think about it. FromSoftware has come out with hit after hit after hit since, I don't know, Dark Souls 2. But it's like, if this turns out to be true and goes through a couple years from now, what happens if FromSoftware is now working under Sony's schedule, with Sony's budget, working under Sony's executives, with Sony controlling most of the publishing stuff? And that doesn't work well with how FromSoftware works, and the next game that FromSoftware puts out isn't the massive hit that Sony was expecting. Layoffs are going to happen. And and who knows how that's going to turn out for FromSoftware. Hell, what if PlayStation decides FromSoftware is going to work on? I doubt this. I doubt this. I don't think they're going to buy FromSoftware and then expect them to make a game as a service. But it also wouldn't be the first time they were going to try and get Naughty Dog to do it. What's another studio that they did that to? Microsoft did the same thing. Or no, Bethesda did the same thing. Oh my god. What is going on? Arcane. What are they known for? Dishonored? Yeah, Dishonored, and they put out what was that live service game that did not well at all? Red something? Arcane. Redfall. Redfall didn't do well. Nobody at that studio wanted to make Redfall. That's not what they're known for. They're known for Dishonored, the immersive sims. You know, single player immersive sims is what they are known for. And they were working on something that they didn't want to make and something that they didn't have the expertise to make. And of course, it didn't go well. All of the senior talent, a bunch of the senior talent left because they didn't want to work on it and they were getting burned out and sick of working with the publisher on it. Microsoft buys them. Redfall doesn't do well. And then they close the studio. It's just this endless cycle. They say we love the creatives and we're going to let them do their thing and build the great games. You're the experts on that. We just want to help you realize your goal. That's fine and good, but the minute the money thing gets a bit tight across the whole enterprise, all of a sudden the companies come back to all of the studios and say we're in a tough spot. We're going to miss the profitability targets, so everybody's got to take a haircut. And some of the smallest studios are going, why do I need the haircut? You bought me. Sorry, that's the timer going off. You bought me for a little bit of money to give me some freedom to do the thing I do. I didn't tell you to spend double-digit billions of dollars on buying other stuff, which means all of a sudden we will be the sacrificial lamb because you've got to make that balance sheet work. It's not a true offer when they say, we're going to buy you and give you all of your autonomy, unless, of course, our other financial agencies force us to close you. And that happens way too often in today's market, and it continues. So no, I'm not excited about the idea that Sony might acquire FromSoftware parent company. Because I think that's just, if that happens, it could be the writing on the wall for FromSoftware. That might be a doomer take. Because I would hope that Sony wouldn't buy FromSoftware to make them make something that they're not used to making. You 100% want them to continue making stuff like Elden Ring. Because that's where the hits are. But who knows? The moment Sony executives see a change in the market, they're going to throw those trends at the developers that they have under their umbrella, and whichever ones don't make huge profits. And I say huge profits because if it makes profits but the profits aren't big enough, they still close the studio, they still make cuts. Anyway. I just really wanted to talk about that. And I don't know if this is going to end up as like a as like a clip on YouTube. But if it does, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know, or if you're watching this as a video later on. I have no idea if this is going to end up a video or not, but if you're watching this as a video on YouTube later, let me know what you're thinking about this, because I don't know if it's actually going to happen. They're reportedly in talks about it. That's not a confirmation. And even if that is a confirmation, that doesn't guarantee that the purchase is even going to happen. But if it does, what do you guys think about it? Do you think that that's writing on the wall for FromSoftware? Do you think if Sony were to purchase FromSoftware, would that even change how FromSoftware works? Are they just going to continue making the hits that they're known for, or is Sony going to push them into a live service trend, or whatever the next trend is in the next 5 years? Are they just going to be forced to do that? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.